Good morning. This is Kim Blaylock with SDG Bible Study. That's the SOLI DEO GLORIA Bible Study coming to you on this Friday morning, April the 4th, 2025. Closing out another work week and just excited to be up and about this morning. Got a busy weekend ahead. Going to have to figure out how I'm going to get tomorrow's reading in because I'm going to be at a men's retreat with the church and just looking forward to that this weekend. We are going to be continuing this morning into reading from God's Word from the Everyday Gospel by Paul David Tripp. We're going to be in 4 chapters in 1 Samuel, chapters 28 through 31. So join me as we read God's Word together this morning. 1 Samuel chapter 28. Now it happened in those days that the Philistines gathered their armed camps for war to fight against Israel. And Achish said to David, "Know assuredly that you will go out with me in the camp, you and your men." And David said to Achish, "Very well, you shall know what your servant can do." So Achish said to David, "Very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life." Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul had removed from the land those who were mediums and spiritists. So the Philistines gathered together and came and camped in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they camped in Gilboa. Saul saw the camp of the Philistines and was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. So Saul asked of Yahweh, but Yahweh did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets. So Saul said to his servants, "Seek for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servants said to him, "Behold, there is a woman who is a medium at Endor." Then Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes, and he went, he and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Divine for me, please, and bring up for me whom I shall say to you." But the woman said to him, "Behold, you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off those who are mediums and spiritists from the land. Why are you then laying a snare for my life to bring about my death?" Then Saul swore to her by Yahweh, saying, "As Yahweh lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." Then the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." And the woman saw Samuel and cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, "Why have you deceived me? For you are Saul." And the king said to her, "Do not be afraid, but what do you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a divine being coming up out of the earth." And he said to her, "What is his form?" And she said, "An old man is coming up, and he is wrapped with a robe." And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" And Saul answered, "I am greatly distressed, for the Philistines are waging war against me, and God has turned away from me and no longer answers me either by the hand of the prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you may make known to me what I should do." And Samuel said, "Why then do you ask me, since Yahweh has turned away from you and has become your adversary?" So Yahweh has done accordingly as he spoke by my hand. For Yahweh has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor, to David. As you did not listen to the voice of Yahweh and did not execute his burning anger on Amalek, so Yahweh has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, Yahweh will also give over Israel along with you into the hand of the Philistines. Therefore, tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Indeed, Yahweh will give over the camp of Israel into the hands of the Philistines. Then Saul quickly fell full length upon the ground and was very afraid because of the words of Samuel. Also, there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no food all day and all night. And the woman came to Saul and saw that he was terrified, and said to him, "Behold, your servant woman has listened to your voice." and I have taken my life in my hand and have listened to your words which you spoke to me. So now also please listen to the voice of your servant woman, and let me set a piece of bread before you, that you may eat and have strength when you go on your way. But he refused and said, I will not eat. However, his servants, together with the woman, urged him, and he listened to them. So he arose from the ground and sat on the bed. And the woman had a fattened calf in the house, and she quickly sacrificed it, and she took flour, kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread from it. And she brought it before Saul and his servants, and they ate. Then they arose and went away that night. Chapter 29. Then the Philistines gathered together all their camps to Aphek, while the Israelites were camping by the spring which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines were proceeding on by hundreds and by thousands. And David and his men were proceeding on in the rear with Achish. Then the commanders of the Philistines said, What are these Hebrews doing here? And Achish said to the commanders of the Philistines, Is this not David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, who has been with me these days, or rather these years, and I have found no fault in him from the day he deserted to me to this day? But the commanders of the Philistines were angry with him. And the commanders of the Philistines said to him, Make the man return, that he may return to his place where you have assigned him, and do not let him go down to battle with us, or in the battle he may become an adversary to us. For with what could this man make himself acceptable to his Lord? Would it not be with the heads of these men? Is this not David, of whom they sing in the dances, saying, Saul has struck his thousands, and David his 10,000s? Then Achish called David and said to him, As Yahweh lives, you have been upright, and your going out and your coming in with me in the camp are pleasing in my sight. For I have not found evil in you from the day of your coming to me to this day. Nevertheless, you are not pleasing in the sight of the lords. So now return and go in peace, that you may not do evil in the sight of the lords of the Philistines. And David said to Achish, But what have I done? And what have you found in your servant from the day when I came before you to this day, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of my lord, the king? But Achish answered and said to David, I know that you are pleasing in my sight, like an angel of God. Nevertheless, the commanders of the Philistines have said, He must not go up with us to the battle. So now arise early in the morning with the servants of your Lord who have come with you, and as soon as you have arisen early in the morning and have light, go. So David arose early, he and his men, to go in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel. Now to chapter 30. Then it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had made a raid on the Negev and on Ziklag, and had struck Ziklag and burned it with fire. They took captive the women and all who were in it, both small and great. They did not put anyone to death, and carried them off and went their way. Then David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. So David and the people who were with him lifted their voices and wept until there was no strength in them to weep. Now David's two wives had been taken captive, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. Moreover, David was greatly distressed because the people said to stone him, for all the people were embittered, each one because of his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in Yahweh his God. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, Please bring the ephod near to me. So Abiathar brought the ephod near to David. And David asked of Yahweh, saying, Shall I pursue this band? Shall I overtake them? And he said to him, Pursue, for you will surely overtake them, and you will surely deliver all. So David went, he and the 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook Bezor, where those left behind remained. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 who were too exhausted to cross the brook Bezor remained behind. Then they found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David and gave him bread, and he ate, and they provided him water to drink. And they gave him a piece of fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, and he ate. Then his spirit revived, for he had not eaten bread or drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, "To whom do you belong, and where are you from?" And he said, "I'm a young man of Egypt, a slave of an Amalekite, and my master forsook me when I fell sick 3 days ago. We made a raid on the Negev of the Kiriathites, and on that which belongs to Judah, and on the Negev of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire." Then David said to him, "Will you bring me down to this band?" And he said, "Swear to me by God that you will not put me to death or surrender me into the hands of my master, and I will bring you down to this band." So he brought him down, and behold, they were spread over all the land, eating and drinking and celebrating because of all the great spoil that they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. Then David struck them down from twilight until evening of the next day, and not a man of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. So David delivered all that the Amalekites had taken and delivered his 2 wives. Indeed, nothing of theirs was missing, whether small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything that they had taken for themselves. David brought it all back. And David took all the sheep and the cattle, which the people drove ahead of the other livestock, and they said, "This is David's spoil." Then David came. Quiet. Sorry. Then David came to the 200 men who were too exhausted to follow David, who had also remained at the brook Bezor, and they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And David approached the people and greeted them. One moment. Sorry about that. Got dogs not behaving this morning. Verse 22. Then all the evil and vile men among those who went with David said, "Because they did not go with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have delivered, except to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart." Then David said, "You must not do so, my brothers. With what Yahweh has given us, who has kept us and given into our hand the band that came against us? And who will listen to you in this matter? For as in the portion of the one who goes down to the battle, so shall the portion be of the one who remains by the baggage. They shall be apportioned together." So it has been from that day forward that he made it a statute and a judgment for Israel to this day. Then David came to Ziklag and sent some of the spoil to the elders of Judah, to his friends, saying, "Behold, a gift for you from the spoil of the enemies of Yahweh, to those who are in Bethel, and to those who are in Ramoth of the Negev, and to those who are in Jatir, and to those who are in Aroer, and to those who are in Siphmoth, and to those who are in Estemoa, and to those who are in Rachel, and to those who are in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, and to those who are in the cities of the Kenites, and to those who are in Hormah, and to those who are in Bor Ashan, and to those who are in Attic, and to those who are in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and the men went about." Now to chapter 31. Now the Philistines were fighting against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines closely pursued Saul and his sons. And the Philistines struck down Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. And the battle became heavy against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was badly wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and pierce me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and pierce me through and abuse me." But his armor-bearer was not willing, for he was greatly afraid. So Saul took his sword and fell on it. Then his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, so he also fell on his sword and died with him. Thus Saul died with his 3 sons, his armor-bearer, and all his men on that day together. Then the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley, with those who were beyond the Jordan, saw that the men of Israel had fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead. So they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and lived in them. Now it happened on the next day that the Philistines came to strip the slain, and they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. Then they cut off his head and stripped off his weapons and sent them all around the land of the Philistines to proclaim the good news to the house of their idols and to the people. And they placed the weapons in the house of Ashtaroth and fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. Then the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul. So all the valiant men arose and walked all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan. And they came to Jabesh and buried them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. That's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text. Now our devotional reading. Sin is a liar. It makes promises it will never keep, offering life but leading instead to destruction and death. It is important to realize that until we are on the other side with peace and righteousness reigning forever and ever, we will be told lies every day. When Satan first enters the scene in the Garden of Eden, he proves himself to be a liar. The business of sin is deceit. Its promises cannot be trusted. The good life that sin offers is the ultimate evil sleight of hand. I once watched card sharks on a street in Philadelphia. They made it look as though money were ready to be made, but the players always lost. I walked away wondering why anybody would ever play, but I knew the answer. The delusion of easy money drew players in. Similarly, we are deceived into thinking that blessing, benefit, and real life can be found somewhere outside of God's boundaries. Adam and Eve bought into that delusion, and people have been buying in ever since. Sin dangles, we reach, and nothing good happens in the end. 1 Samuel chapter 31 records the sad end of Saul's life. This final account of King Saul's life should make us weep. Now the Philistines were fighting against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines overtook Saul and his sons, and the Philistines struck down Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. The battle pressed hard against Saul, and the archers found him, and he was badly wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and mistreat me." But his armor-bearer would not, for he feared greatly. Therefore Saul took his own sword and fell upon it. And when his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell upon his sword and died with him. 1 Samuel chapter 31, verses 1 through 5. What a tragic end to this anointed king's life. The army of the king was completely defeated. His sons were killed in battle, and Saul died by suicide. When we read this account, we find it hard to remember the glory days when Saul was anointed as the first king of Israel. Saul had listened to and chased sin's lie. He knowingly stepped over God's boundaries while excusing his transgressions. What was Saul thinking? Where did he tell himself the story would end? Did he really think he was smarter than God? Did he reason that God would simply ignore his rebellion? I am persuaded that this account is in our Bibles because God loves us and wants to warn us. The wages of sin really is death, Romans 6:23, and we all buy into sin's deceit. That's why we need to be rescued from ourselves, and why God in grace sent his son to be the rescuer. Jesus offers us not only real life with a joyous end, but also power right here, right now to stand against sin's deceit. Run to him. He won't turn you away. That's going to conclude our reading this morning from the biblical text and the devotional. I hope you've enjoyed it this morning. I certainly have. Such a fascinating story going on here. True to life story of the tragic end of King Saul. I mean, going to a medium and calling up Samuel and all that. Just again, as Paul David Tripp said, what was Saul thinking? What was going on in his head that he was so greatly deceived by sin? And I agree, this story is here for our benefit, for us to understand the deceitfulness and the destructiveness of sin, which always brings death. Let's not be duped by the deceiver this morning. I hope you enjoy the day, and I hope you give God the glory in it. Soli Deo Gloria.